Very concerned about the theft of hives as people are looking for free honey.
Yeah, there has been a sort of a escalated number of hive thefts over the last, probably over the last 6 months or so. I think that's to do with the price of hives, and also people think it's quite easy to flog hives from places, and yeah, and it's also the industry, the way it's gone with the Manuka side of things, that people think our industry is expanding over the last sort of 5 years. It's sort of nearly doubled in hive numbers throughout New Zealand, and people are just trying to clip the ticket on the way by trying to flog hives and then sell them off, because it is quite hard to trace them back. There are certain products out there now that you can put tags and RFID tags and stuff like that on hives to basically track them. So I think that over the next few years will become more and more of an industry standard, probably.
But it wouldn't be a very safe thing to do because bees sting.
Yeah, that is a fact. From probably most of the thefts that have been happening, I would suggest the people that have been in the industry, or still are in the industry, and they're probably used to getting the stings. So that I would think that, and they're probably doing it at night when they're not as susceptible to getting stung. So, and they're probably wearing full bee suits and gloves and stuff like that, so you don't tend to get stung at all. So, but that is certainly an issue. If somebody, Joe Public, thinks it's a good idea just to go and flog one and get stung, there could be huge ramifications for that if they're allergic to them.
Pollination is probably just about taking over honey production.
Yeah, well, for instance, in our operation, we probably shift 2/3 of our hives are used for pollination crops that we shift in and out. Yeah, it's certainly it's been an expanding industry over the last sort of 10-15 years in the small seed crops, especially in where we're based in the Mid Canterbury area. It's dependent on what you're pollinating as to what honey they're producing as well. But certainly, yeah, it's one of those things that the price of honey at the moment is certainly sort of balancing out from what we're getting over the last couple of years. The honey price has sort of gone up sort of 20-30%. This year it has dropped back a bit, but it's still at a good price point to actually sort of still gather, try and have target honey production. But it's one of those things that people need to decide if they're going to do pollination or honey production.
Several cropping farmers have suggested that you guys are getting expensive.
Yeah, I've had a couple of conversations with local farmers that we pollinate crops for, and they're certainly concerned about the price of the hives that we put into the crops. But at the end of the day, you need the bees to pollinate the crop, and we, because of where the price of honey is, especially clover honey which we produce, it's got to balance out to be economic for us to use hives for pollination services. Otherwise it might be just more economic for us to say that we're not going to do pollination and gather honey. But that's not what we're, in our operation, that's not what we're here for. We're here to service all the crops and stuff that are in our area, and it's just trying to find that balance of price point, I suppose you could say, where the farmer's happy and the beekeeper's happy, and he can, both parties can make a living.
Barry, the Manuka golden egg didn't become a golden egg.
No, not this season anyway. The Manuka honey production this year has been well down, and it's been well down throughout the whole of New Zealand basically, which is surprising. Usually there are pockets where they've done okay, but I think on general terms that the Manuka side of things has been well down. But also in all honeys, it's been a pretty poor season throughout New Zealand. I think the only area that's done fairly well is where we are in the Canterbury, basically on the Canterbury Plains. We've done quite well. We've probably done best year we've probably had in the last 5 or 6, so which is good, but we're only just sort of about average or a bit above, so it's nothing to write home about, but that was due to the weather. It looked a lot better than what we got, but it was just that weather we had in January that sort of knocked us back a bit. But yeah, certainly the Manuka has been well down, and it's going to be interesting to see where the price point is for Manuka this year, if there's short supply. I do hear that a lot of the big honey packers do have quite good honey stocks of the Manuka side of things, so yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what this season's honey is going to fetch. I'd suggest that some of the good stuff will probably be worth a lot of money if somebody's got it.
A lack of Manuka honey, is that going to open the door for people trying to sell other honey as Manuka?
I guess it probably can, but we're at the present point in time, MPI are doing, they've done research over the last sort of 2.5 years to determine basically what you can and can't call Manuka. Because the other thing with Manuka is you have Carnuka, which are basically 2 different flowers, but when you're testing honey under a microscope for pollen analysis, the pollens look the same and they're really hard to differentiate. But MPI have been doing their own research to sort of determine what you can and can't call, or the definition of Manuka. So they're meant to have some guidelines out, or some rules out by, I think it's April, due in April. So that's going to be a big industry when it comes out, those standards, because it's going to determine what a lot of people are going to be able to sell their honey for that they've got in the sheds.